Hey Rowdies, welcome back to the channel. If you are new, welcome to my channel. I'm Vinita and I am your host and your Rowdy Rani. This is a platform where we talk about stories, we're empowered by others, we talk about tough discussions that maybe haven't been happening as much in communities surrounding us. So that's what we're here to do today, and I'm very excited for our guest today. We have a wonderful young woman who is spreading her wings and going into great industries with life coaching, and she does a lot of work with spirituality and mental health. So I'm very excited to have her today. So welcome, Nistha. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Hey Vinita, what's up? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was really exciting to even get to learn about you. So, we've chatted before the recording, obviously. So I've been very excited to have this episode. I think you have so much interesting stuff to talk about. So without further ado, give us a little backstory about yourself. Where are you from? What have you been working on and kind of how you got here?
Yeah, totally. So I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. So I live in Northern Virginia. Just graduated from Virginia Tech. So I studied neuroscience and psychology, which is super fun. And yeah, I think it was honestly like pretty recently that I want to say back in March when we had that whole kind of like pivotal turn of events and all the classes ended up being online due to the pandemic. And ever since then, I've just kind of been chilling at home with my parents, which has been nice, but it's also kind of just given me a lot of time to focus on my career, what I want to do moving forward. And I think having that time to reflect for me it was a really big deal because it was sort of like make or break it in terms of, do I want to go into corporate, which is sort of where I was aiming to go beforehand, or do I want to kind of almost like make those pipe dreams that I've always kind of dreamed of as a child a reality. And I decided to kind of go with the latter. And ever since then, I've just been moving forward with sort of what you mentioned with coaching, with networking for public speaking, which is sort of my overarching aspiring direction that I'm moving towards. And then, yeah, a lot of mental health work on the side and creating content on my own as well. So it's just been super fun to just network with people and, meet people like you and I who are young content creators, especially in the South Asian community, and just make a difference and spread our message around.
Yeah, it's definitely been really exciting. Obviously, we have great viewers at Rowdy Rani, and we've been collaborating with other podcasts, like you said, other brown creators, and it's just been such a phenomenal experience to be welcomed so wholeheartedly almost into this community. And you sort of feel hesitant, I guess. I feel hesitant, like, am I really a part of it? Am I not? But it's just been great, the more and more people that I've met with and networked with. So I know that's a very exciting aspect of what this field sort of has to offer.
Definitely.
So I know that you are a very spiritual person, and I know that, your personal spiritual journey has been something that was always really intriguing to me. So tell us about, how you got started in that realm and how that sort of grew for you and evolved.
Yeah, so it was pretty funny. I feel like growing up for me, I've always kind of, and I was telling you this when we talked earlier, not really resonated with religion or spirituality, sort of grown up. And I was thinking it was very much of an airy-fairy thing. My parents would always talk about astrology or the idea that words or thoughts hold power. And I was kind of like, what is this BS? Like, how do you just know this? And I was always sort of like searching for this scientific backbone or this sort of base of a reason for explaining all of these concepts. And I never really got one. So I just decided to almost be ignorant to that, side of the universe or that side of reality, and sort of stuck with the hardcore science path, as I said. And I studied neuro and psych, and those are really, really intriguing fields. But it was actually funny because it was in college, my freshman year, kind of ended up going to like a tarot reader for fun because I was like, I'm going to see what this whole psychic business is about. And it was very much like a spontaneous decision. And I went in very, very skeptical, like almost ready to sort of see her process or like what this tarot reader is going to do and kind of like pick flaws in that. And surprisingly, the reading ended up being somehow very spot on. And I was always like sort of baffled by how spot on the reading was. And it was almost like a moment of me sort of expanding, like on a subconscious level, expanding on my faith and on my belief that there could be something more out there. So didn't ponder too much on that. But fast forward to my second year of college, it was sophomore year, and I remember I was like scrolling through Instagram and I came across this one post about like law of attraction and manifesting. Had never heard the concept in my life. So I was literally reading this post and I was like, what is this? And I remember the person who made the post was talking about this specific method she used, which was called scripting. So she basically journaled like her ideal life, what she wanted, and specifically the example that she gave in her post was she wrote down all of the qualities that she wanted in a guy, happened to meet this person 2 weeks later and was married to him already by the time she wrote the post. So she was like, yeah, I wrote this whole thing, met my husband 2 weeks later. So I was like, cool, there has to be something here, but I was still very like closed off to the idea that any of that was real. Again, hadn't heard the words or the concepts before. This was like a total shift up for me almost. So I was like, you know what, if any of this manifesting stuff is real, I literally like called it that. I was like, I'm just gonna, I can't write it off because it's happening for some people. So I'm just gonna go ahead and, kind of make a journal entry of like ideal things that I would want in a person. And I just decided to like whip out a journal and kind of go ahead and write that down. Again, had a totally, I feel like my mind was sort of like, okay, universe, surprise me. Like if any of this stuff is real, just surprise me, and I went down, kind of like wrote down these qualities and created this list, and I put it away and I really didn't think about it. Like it was so not on my mind. And within like a month, like literally a month later, was on a first date with someone who had every single one of those qualities. And I told you the story more specifically when we talked, so I'm not going to go too much into detail now, but for anyone who knows me and any of my friends, they know just how coincidentally that sort of conspired, and that whole series of events led up to that first date, and just how odd it all was, because I was so not in a mind frame to even be in the dating scene at the moment. So I thought that was sort of odd. And then at the same time, had a very, very similar experience with study abroad. I had been manifesting unintentionally, because obviously I didn't know what manifesting was, but I'd always talked about going to Spain, and I always spoke that into existence. That was very much a thing that I wanted. I wanted to study abroad there for 3 months for like a semester in college. And I would always say that since like I was 15. And so the experience kind of like came and left my hands multiple times in college. Like I thought I was going to go freshman year, thought I was going to go sophomore year. Parents weren't about it either time. So it finally went around to my junior year. I had stuff with like the immigration process and couldn't really go then. Senior year, didn't think I had any time in my schedule to squeeze it in. And basically, to sum it up, I found out on the day of the deadline, this was the extended deadline date, not the original one, that I was able to go just with a conversation I had with an advisor. And yeah, I remember that day I kind of opened up my journal, which I wrote like 3 years before, like a specific entry about specifically studying abroad in Sevilla, which I had barely studied about Sevilla in school. I always kind of pictured myself going to Barcelona, but I wrote this journal entry about Sevilla specifically as a freshman. I don't know why. That ended up being where I went abroad, just because my friend had applied to Sevilla, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it too. And it was weird, like looking back at that entry and realizing like I didn't even remember writing that, but it was just something that was in my journal and I wrote down as a freshman. So it was basically, to sum it up, like these series of weird events that basically led me to a point where I couldn't explain them, like using science or using logic or rationale, right? Like I got to a point where I was like, there is something out there greater than we know, and who am I to say that it's not real? So started exploring law of attraction and manifesting more in detail, started reading a lot of books about it, watching a ton of YouTube videos, TikToks, and basically like reading people's experiences. So I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is a very like trending thing. I think it is a fad now. And I have talked a little bit on my platforms about sort of how, we Westerners have maybe distorted it a little bit, and,
Right.
Kind of being like cognizant of the roots and where it comes from is very important. But I think with just like all the exposure that I got to it, I was like, this is incredible because so many people know about it. And there's neuroscientists like Joe Dispenza who use it to literally cure people who have ADHD, multiple sclerosis, depression, anxiety. So I think it's amazing that more than just like some sort of hippy dippy concept, this is an actual practical, form of the universe that people are using towards a greater cause. So ever since, these kind of breakthroughs and turn of events, I've definitely always sort of been along for the ride with the whole spiritual journey, allowing the universe to kind of just meet me halfway. I know if I put in my end of the work and kind of, have this faith in the idea that whatever's meant to happen will happen, and it'll happen in my best interest, even if my mind may believe otherwise in the moment. I think that just helped me tremendously with like anything that's come up in my life, whether that was negative or positive. It's sort of this idea and trusting something that's bigger than you. And I think it's beautiful how that faith for me has sort of unraveled.
Right. Yeah. That's, I mean, too many coincidences to write off, right? You know?
Way too many. Yeah.
And I definitely think it is interesting that you mentioned the sort of westernized fad version. I think I'm not like on TikTok. I'm not very present there, but I do scroll through it here, you know, now and again. And I've just been seeing so much, I mean, so many, you know, weird, um, I guess ways of distorting something, you know, and things that come from Hindu culture, and suddenly they're distorted and they're like called witchcraft. And I'm so confused, right? And I think I didn't even, you know, until I met you, I didn't really know what even you know, what we were talking about, right? I didn't know what it was. So if you could sum up pretty broadly, like what is the concept of law of attraction and manifestation? Like what do those things actually mean? You know,
Mm-hmm.
in, you know, coming from a person that's probably distorting it less than, you know, someone who's calling it witchcraft. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely see that a lot, and I'm like, ooh, okay. Like, witch talk has become a thing, and I'm like, literally all they're talking about is law of attraction stuff that so many of, you know, the people in the South Asian or Buddhist community today, like the Brahma Kumaris. I don't know if you know, um, Shivani. She's one of the Brahma Kumari foundation leaders who travels and just speaks about these topics, and I'm seeing them presented on TikTok in such a different light, and I'm like, there's kind of a discrepancy here. But yeah, to basically sum up law of attraction and manifesting, law of attraction is pretty much the idea on a very, very simplistic level that like attracts like. So truly what you become, the energy that you exude, and the thoughts that you sort of think that comprise of your, you know, daily reality is what you pretty much end up attracting in your surroundings. So I'll give you an example. I feel like this is like a very common thing that people throw out, but it's the idea that like, oh, you can't find love until you love yourself first. Or the idea that, you know, like when the whole post breakup glow up thing and everyone's like, oh my God, like everyone glows up after a breakup. And I'm like, well, there's an actual like energetic reason behind that. And it's not just coincidence or, you know, it's not just like this like external superficial change. It's more of an internal thing, because generally after a breakup, or generally once you start, you know, showing yourself more love or yourself more confidence, your exterior literally changes. Like you start exuding a different energy and people pick up on that. And that's why so many times, like I'll see people go through breakups and literally like a few months later, they're with someone that's already within months, they're with a new person, but that relationship is so much more better for them. And I
Mm-hmm.
always think about that and I'm like, how does that happen? Like, how do people just
Right.
move on so quickly, right? And I've seen that happen before. And then I realized it like once I studied law of attraction more, because I'm like, hang on, basically what they're doing is they're reinventing themselves, right? After a breakup, you generally are forced to go through that rut. You're forced to go
Right.
through these devastating emotions. And then you kind of start picking yourself up. And when you pick yourself up, obviously your internal reality is changing, right? Like the way you think about yourself, sort of your daily routine, maybe your self-talk, but then also your surroundings, like externally on a material level, start reflecting that. So
Right.
it's very natural that you're going to attract new friends. You could potentially attract a new partner. I've seen that happen to many people, attract new opportunities, but a lot of it is changing just the way you look at yourself. So with manifestation specifically, it's kind of this branch to law of attraction, where it's the idea that you can literally like write out or think up any reality you want externally first in your mind. And I'll definitely go into resources in a bit, because I think there's so many out there. And I know for a lot of people, they don't really know which ones they can trust and which ones might
Right.
be a little, so I'll touch on that a little more. But yeah, with manifesting, it's really, it's an interesting thing, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around it as well, which I'll also touch on. But to sum it up, it's just the idea that you can entirely shift your reality and your surroundings on a material level by simply the way that you choose to sort of reframe your thoughts. And it's the idea that like neurons that wire together fire together. It's almost like you can put that neurological basis behind it, but the more thought and the more energy that you give a certain idea, or that you give words that you speak, you're going to start seeing those, you know, sort of manifest into your life. So it truly, when people say manifestation, I want, listeners tuning in right now to understand why it's that specific word and to understand the energetic principles behind it. Because there's a lot of science that just goes untalked about, and it's very easy to kind of write it off as something that is airy fairy. So yeah, that's a very simplistic explanation of it.
Right. Yeah. And I think what you said with being that airy fairy, almost beyond natural world sort of thing is something that kind of restricts a lot of people from going into that field. And, you studied hard sciences. I studied hard sciences. I'm a pre-med student. So, I mean, I'm looking to make a living within that realm. So, it's always been really interesting to me because I've lived constantly in that dichotomy, right? Where I do believe in hard science, but I'm, a religious and spiritual person as well. Mm-hmm. So I have had to understand the difference and the similarities and kind of where things come together and how they come together. And I remember, a mentor of mine and a family friend told me the first day that I shadowed him in freshman year, he said, and he's a surgeon. So I was following his surgeries, and he said, a doctor only does the work that, some other power is wanting them to do. Because I can put a stitch in a person's skin, but there is some force beyond me and beyond humans that heals that skin back together. Just because I put in a thread, it doesn't mean anything, right? That wound actually will close up and heal itself. And that is something that's always going to be beyond you. And going in, into medicine specifically, he's like, you need to be very aware of that. And you have to have something that kind of grounds you in terms of, you're not God. And I think that's definitely something that we hear, we see, on occasion, that when you go into those hard science fields, you feel like you can change the very structure of the world almost. But I think it was so interesting to me to live in that kind of constant dichotomy of understanding, okay, this is my science part and this is my spiritual part. But the more I'm hearing you talk and the more that I grow up and investigate different parts of my own culture and religion, I don't think they're that separate. There are so many overlaps, like you said, that there's scientific bases in terms of the energy principles and all of those things, and even things that we do ritually in our culture. One of the ones that to this day blows my mind is during weddings. I don't know if this, again, please don't come at me, I don't know if this is everywhere in India, but I'm pretty sure it's in South India for sure, that they show newlywed couples a specific star constellation in the nighttime, and they both are to look up at it. And I don't know where I even came across this, but I was researching something, and that is the only 2-star constellation in our entire, galaxy of whatever we can see from Earth, that both of the stars revolve equally around each other, and every other 2-star constellation is one star is stationary and the other star orbits it. And the reason they show newlywed couples this is that to tell them and to show them that, in a relationship, both of you need to put in the work. Both of you need to be adjusting. Both of you need to be collaborating, not even adjusting, right? You need to be working together. It cannot be one person stationary and somebody catering to what you want constantly. And so it took astrologers, in the Western world years, beyond to figure that out. And, that's been something that was so ingrained in our religion, in our culture, in our ceremonies. And so there's so much, I think, and I'm not preaching that you have to be Hindu to have this connection at all. I think this is personally, part of my journey and how I made those connections. But, like you said, spirituality is whole thing, and it's a way of viewing the world and the universe. And I think no matter what background you're from, you can definitely, come into this space and kind of create your own version of what that means to you. So I'm super, enthusiastic about this. I'm really excited to get into this. But I think one thing that always makes me really curious is, what effect has this had on your life that you feel like, obviously the mental states, right? The way that you approach things, the way that you think about things is going to change tremendously, which is fantastic. But I'm curious kind of, in your personal life, in your career life, what are those sort of almost tangible results or things that you've seen change for yourself because of this spiritual growth and journey that you've been a part of?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wanted to just touch on the thing that you talked about with the wedding ceremony and the stars. I think that's beautiful. I've never heard of that, and I definitely want to explore that more. I've actually never heard anyone I have plenty of South Asian friends as well, or South Indian friends, sorry. I haven't really heard that one before. So that's really interesting, and I want to learn more about that. I think that's beautiful. But I love that you emphasize the point that you can create the reality that you want and kind of step into this version of exuding basically what it is that you want to be reflected back to you. That's pretty much the idea of law of attraction manifestation. So for me, how that's kind of played out in my life, I think an excellent example, and I made a LinkedIn post about this earlier, and it's almost like I just wish people were receptive to this and more. There's so many people who are, but I almost wish that like we could spread this across to everyone, or people would, start to apply these principles into their own lives, because it's tremendously, like drastically changed sort of the way that I live my life and the faith that I have, and furthered it more. But literally when I decided that I didn't want to move forward with corporate and I wanted to just kind of full send my freelance career with coaching and with speaking and writing and all the stuff that I'm doing now, obviously there were so many hesitations and limiting beliefs behind that. Like there was, what if I don't succeed? What are people going to say about me, especially within the brown South Asian community? Like I've already had conversations like that come up of, oh, like, what are you doing? You're starting a business. Like,
Right.
okay, things like that. And, a lot of limiting beliefs around also the fact that, okay, like I kind of went to Virginia Tech, like it's the only institution in the United States that has its own school of neuroscience. So it's not just a major, it's a separate school.
Wow.
And we were the first one to do that. So kind of the idea of like, kind of paid a lot of money to get this degree, and I'm kind of in a way not directly using it. So sort of this unlearning of the societal expectations of you having to put your degree towards like, a direct job that sort of is vocational and, sort of links up to that. I think there were a lot of hesitations around me doing a totally different thing that doesn't really require a neuro degree, if you will. So I spent a lot of time trying to like really unlearn those beliefs and get rid of them to make myself, kind of create this energetic space for myself where I was like, yo, it's okay to kind of delve into these areas that I'm going into now if it makes me happy. And it's incredible because ever since I gave myself the permission to really do that, and I sort of show the universe like, hey, I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm going to put in, the legwork, and I'm going to absolutely show you how like dedicated I am to this faith and this idea that I can, bring back reward for whatever it is I want. I think once I really fully sort of tapped into that, and there weren't as many limiting beliefs, which took a lot of consistency and persistence with making content. I just started noticing opportunity after opportunity sort of come my way. And to go into specifics about the LinkedIn post I was talking about, it's incredible because I was just looking back at like the past 5 months, and it was March when I got the job offer. And then it was like it was end of March when I decided to start my YouTube channel. And that was kind of like my first endeavor for me. And nothing was really serious at that point. I want to say it was April when I was like, I'm going to take this to TikTok and start making more life coaching videos and start spreading it on there. And then my podcast, I didn't start until like a month and a half ago. So it was like probably July 1st is when I dropped my first episode. So there were all these like little things that I was working up towards, and each, benchmark that I met, like each project that I started was in a way out of my comfort zone. Like I was continuously putting myself out there on different platforms. I was opening myself up to the world in a very vulnerable way, which I had never done before. Like anyone who knows me, who went to school with me, like, that my social medias were all private. I literally didn't accept followers or follow people that I didn't know. And by didn't know, I mean like, unless you were a close friend of mine, like my roommate, a close friend, I saw you on a regular basis, we were part of like an organization or club together. Like I just didn't let people follow me, even if they were like acquaintances or mutual friends or people I had met once. So I was very closed off. And for me to even enter this space was a huge leap of faith for me in a way. And I think with each individual project that I decided to launch, it was really weird seeing like an opportunity reflect back to me each time. So for example, I started Manifesting Mondays, which was this Instagram live workshop that I did, basically talked about law of attraction every Monday for an hour. And the first one that I did, I was literally so anxious beforehand. I was like, I'm just not going to do this. I'm not going to go on live. Like, I had this fear that either no one was going to join, or I had this fear that all these like professional CEOs and business people were just going to find my live, come on, and I would just be like a 22-year-old talking about like law of attraction and no one would take me seriously. So I was very ready to just not even do that and kind of call it quits before it even started. And it was after that first episode that one of my friends texted me, and he was like, hey, my friend really wants to get to know you. She absolutely loved your Manifesting Monday. She wasn't even on the live. She was just sitting next to him, and he was the one who was on the live. And I got a text from her, and she ended up being a product manager at Facebook who has worked with literally the CEOs of like LinkedIn and Amazon and these big companies. And she was able to sort of relay that training to me and help me with marketing, help me with branding. And similar to that, I started this other purpose finding workshop that I kind of marketed on LinkedIn. Again, I was terrified of even putting myself out there on LinkedIn, because that was like the one platform where I would like, okay, everyone's so professional, they're so put together. Like, I'm out here basically jobless, like making my own sort of, you know, platform, which is awesome. But like, I was like, what are people going to think of me? Like, I'm right out of college and I don't know, like talking about manifestation. Like, I can't even market that on LinkedIn. I had so many fears and reservations around that. And it was actually my friend Ishita, who's the product manager at Facebook, who helped me get into that space. And she was like, no, people on LinkedIn are there with a growth mindset. Like, they want to learn. So you have to put yourself out there, and you can market it differently. You don't have to call it manifesting. You can talk about mindset development or personal development or self-help. And I was like, that's really smart. So kind of did that. And through my first workshop, literally only 4 people joined, but one of those people happened to be a product manager for a nonprofit, the JCK Foundation, which is a mental health suicide prevention nonprofit. And she actually extended the opportunity for me to be a speaker and like a module creator for them as well. So now I'll be collaborating with them. And then just another small example, like on TikTok, I kind of was like, you know what? I studied neuro. I really like it. I'm just going to talk about neuroscience on TikTok. I don't care if people think I'm nerdy or whatever. And like through, I think my second video posting about neuro, I got a sponsorship offer from this artificial intelligence sleep like research app. And I was like, okay, super cool. So these are all examples of small little rewards that came my way when I decided to get out of my comfort zone every single time. So this is what I mean when I say the universe meets you halfway, when you put in the work and you believe in yourself, because each time I was so close to like not putting myself out there. But I think what got me through was like literally the small voice in my head that was like, Nistha, people need to hear this. Like, people need to hear you talk about mindset development and how you can apply law of attraction in your own life towards developing confidence, or you know, kind of finding your purpose or creating a career. Like, that is so something that's untalked about, and that's a gap you can fill. So it was like literally me having to give myself like this internal pep talk. And every time that I did that, I was rewarded. So when I say the story, I'm not trying to say the story in any way to like flex. I'm trying to say the story because I want people to understand that, like, truly guys, like if you put in your best foot forward, and even if it's a little out of your comfort zone, which it will be, like that's natural, you will be rewarded in some way. And it could be something as small as meeting a mentor. It could be an opportunity. It could be a sponsorship. You never know. It could be a new friend. Like, it could be a networking opportunity. And I think it's like the perfect example of butterfly effect. Like, the butterfly effect is literally all these little small, you know, ripple chain of events that happen when you make one decision that may seemingly be insignificant at first, but it just kind of leads to this whole array of amazing, you know, life-changing events that kind of lead you to a destination that you had never expected yourself to be at. So I think that's truly the power of law of attraction. It is changing your internal reality, the way that you view yourself, and the universe just responds with things that match that energy level. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Honestly, I have goosebumps, like just, you know, hearing it. And, you know, I'm hearing your story, and just before we started recording, we were discussing, you know, I had the opportunity to be on another podcast, and, you know, that was really awesome. And so many people, I've watched that and are, you know, avid followers because they're great guys over there. And people started following me, and I got a message, and I guess they posted the episode today. So, if you guys want to watch, go head over to the Telugu saga. I was on there, which was really fun. I got to speak in Telugu on a podcast and put it on YouTube.
So
So that was
fun.
exciting.
I love that.
Um, but we've had people, that are reaching out to us right after that. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a chain effect. I obviously, I met you, Nissa, through Janani, who I interviewed on our last episode. And I met Janani through like me messaging her on TikTok. So
Yeah.
it's really just been, like you said, there's so many, I can't even call them coincidences, right? And anybody who knows me knows that I'm really extroverted. I love having these conversations that are, deeper than the day-to-day surface level and kind of the daily grind. But I'll admit, I was really hesitant to do this. And this was an idea that I'd had in my mind for so long. But you touched on the idea of limiting beliefs, and I think that that's something that has been a personal demon for sure. And I know that they exist, and a lot of making this platform has kind of been, I want to learn from people who've gotten past their limiting beliefs. I want to learn why they exist in the first place, and that was kind of something that really resonated with me. And do you feel like sort of this new mindset that was inspired by your spirituality and your deep research and understanding and connection to these concepts, like, did that help you with your limiting beliefs, and did that help you sort of break those chains? Because I know a lot of the time, like you said, it's a community thing. A lot of the Indian and South Asian community don't support these sorts of things, and I think that can be very challenging to maneuver and to navigate. And so if it did play a role at all, what was the role of your spirituality and mindset in sort of breaking those barriers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And 100%, like, this is what, I want to help people with. I feel like this is part of my purpose. And this is what I do, when I coach people. And it's really cool because for so long, I think before getting into spirituality, thought that these limiting beliefs were real. I thought that they had some power over me. And then I think it was this book that really changed everything for me. And you guys have to read it. It's called Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Incredible man. He's enlightened, and he writes a lot of books and gives seminars and talks about spirituality. And reading that book, it's a very easy read too, and it's very comprehensive and easy to follow. But it was reading that book that really got me to understand that your thoughts literally are rooted in past events or in fear about the future. Like, your thoughts are literally not existent in this moment. Like, they don't hold any weight over you unless you let them. And I think it was reading that book that truly got me to understand that all of the noise in your head, they're either rooted from things that have happened in the past or things that haven't happened yet. They're not rooted in anything that's currently happening in your reality. And it was like this quote that I remember writing down. And it was like, all you ever have is the present moment. Like, that is it. That's all any of us ever have. But we so often live in our minds, and our minds are either replaying things that have already happened or already like conjuring up things that haven't happened yet. And that's why we get anxiety. And that's why we, dwell on certain past events, or we get frustrated, and we literally make a reality in our head that doesn't exist right now. So I think it was reading that book that for me got me to understand that like all my limiting beliefs are based in fear that stem from basically past events that have happened in my life. Like, that could be trauma, that could be at a time where I felt excluded or didn't feel validated. And when I realized that my limiting beliefs don't hold power over me unless I allow them to, that was when I was like, hang on, I can pretty much create now any reality I want by just giving other thoughts power, like by reframing my thoughts and giving those energy and time and space, which again connects to law of attraction. And it was definitely that book that I think helped me do it. And then I think another thing that kind of helped for me was when I was like on TikTok or YouTube, I would see all these like 20-year-old creators who kind of left their 9-to-5s and decided to start working towards their dream goals. And I was like, okay, what are these people doing that I'm not able to do? Because this was back in March when I was still kind of on the fence, and I felt like I had to go into corporate, and I had all these fears around what if I didn't. And I mean, this was the same time when I got TikTok, because I got it like a month before, just like as a joke with my friends. And of course, like a few weeks later, my For You page is just full of like law of attraction and influencers and all these like, super up and coming topics. So it was literally seeing other people my age breaking through those barriers and sort of doing what my limiting beliefs said I couldn't. And I was like, the only thing that differentiates me from them is the fact that I don't believe in myself. That was sort of the groundbreaking, revelation that I had. It wasn't so much like, what background I come from. It wasn't how much, money I make, or it wasn't, parents or friends. It was nothing external. It was like, hang on, the only reason I'm not there is because I don't believe in myself. So that's when I really started working on the fact that all my limiting beliefs, and kind of reminding myself that all my limiting beliefs they're baseless, like they're not real. And this is not to take away from fear. This isn't to take away from actual real emotions that you guys feel, because it's important to, feel that out and give that some space. But it's also important to not dwell over them or let those, kind of let yourself drown in them, because it's very easy to do that. And I think that oftentimes people feel like their limiting beliefs are rooted in reality, and that's why they're just too scared to start a new project or start that blog or that channel or podcast or whatever you guys want to do. There's always like a sense of, I just won't be able to succeed, that almost comes with it, that I've seen in a lot of people. And I think it's just important to spread that, like, that is so not, that's so not true. Like, you have it in you to reframe that and make whatever reality you want a reality for yourself. And that's something that I chose to do in my career. And I definitely think spirituality is like what allowed me to really recognize that distinction.
Wow. Yeah, I know I needed to hear it, and hopefully whoever's out there listening, watching, taking in Rowdy Rani however you please. I hope that that's something that really, got to you guys. I think it is really important. I'm just starting out. I'm so new in this field. But again, like I said, it's been so exciting. I've had great support. My family's been really supportive. My peers have been really supportive. People are coming through from like my middle school days and following my page. And so I just need to take a second to really shout out everybody that's come through for Rowdy Rani. I know one of my coworkers started following me a couple of days ago. So if you're watching, thank you so much. But no, thank you guys all, because it is hard. It's hard to put yourself out there. And there's so many voices in your head that tell you repetitively that, it's an oversaturated space. There's so many brown creators. What are you going to do that's different? And I think, it's very interesting that you said that those thoughts they don't have any legitimacy. They're not even existent, really. It's something that's so beyond the present that does it really kind of matter, and not in a way, like you said, to invalidate feelings, but I think it's so important to build these mental processes and build these mental discussions with ourselves, and then, spreading them to people around us. I think, limiting beliefs come from multiple sources, and they can come externally from different sources, but they become limiting beliefs when we internalize them. So there is responsibility on both ends. And so I think that it is definitely more important to try and work on ourselves, because that's kind of what is in our control and what we know we can directly address and, prepare ourselves, because you can't really control others and how they're going to respond or react to you at every single point in time. But that being said, I think it's really interesting also, once you build that awareness for yourself, and once you build your world that you want to be in and that you've kind of almost curated piece by piece for yourself, I think it becomes very much so easier to call somebody out, especially if they're important people in your life. It's very difficult to, kind of deal with that negativity or deal with the mentality that, is kind of breaking you down, or it will break you down. And while it's important to talk to ourselves and work on those limiting beliefs, I think it's also important to, open conversations and understand why those limiting beliefs are being spread as well. And I think this is a really interesting, like, other side of the game almost, because, I am very focused on trying to understand, the psychology behind why we're faced with these, right? Why, as a collective brown community, South Asian community, whatever you want to call it, why can we all so quickly relate to these things, right? Why can we so easily feel the feelings of somebody else because we felt them the same? But I think step one, like you said, is always to kind of work on yourself and put yourself in that position for success and building, your world the way that you want it to be. Speaking of success and building your world, I know that you have launched your coaching business, and you've been working on that. And I know that when we spoke, you told me that you're kind of coming into your first round of paying clientele. So congratulations on that. I mean,
Thank you.
tell us what you're seeking to do with your business and that platform, and what's your kind of goal for that right now.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I definitely wanted to touch on, I love your response about just the idea that once you internalize the external noise is when you might be in a little bit of trouble. And I like that you also mentioned that there is responsibility on both ends, because I think oftentimes it's so easy to blame like your surroundings and kind of criticize like what's around you, like whether that's your parents or your friends or your schoolmates, or something a teacher said to you, and like that's the reason why my life is like this, or I don't believe in myself. But there's also, an ounce of space and liberty you have to step back and be like, I don't want to internalize that. And that takes time. And that's something that, we as humans are constantly working on, and we like to protect ourselves. So it's very easy to kind of project that blame onto others. But, there is an element of free will and control that we have to really make that distinction between deciding what other people give power to and whether we want to give power to the same things, because that's really in our hands. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think being the self-development space and being able to have access to those resources and see other people who have done it is something that, will really help listeners today. So transitioning into coaching, I think it's been interesting, because I kind of really got into it like very much not by coincidence, I want to say, but I think for me, coaching was so not on the radar. And I think right now, if we weren't in a pandemic, I would kind of be full-fledged moving forward with speaking and going to panels and events and conventions. But I think because we're more of in like a virtual space right now, where it's easier to connect online. And I've also discovered, through YouTube and TikTok and all these like visual platforms, that I have a lot of, I think, value to give when it comes to mindset development and empowerment, and persuading people to really take that next step and get out of their comfort zones and do something that might be a little bit uncomfortable. I've kind of always, I was telling you this, but I've always been that friend that's like really encouraged my friends to be like, it's okay, like go make that decision, text that boy first, like approach that person, or, it's okay, like if you don't want to interview for that job, don't do it, like do what your heart calls you to do. And it's funny, because I feel like I'm the friend that a lot of my friends consistently come up to, and they're like, Nistha, I need to make a crazy decision right now, and I know I want to do this, but like I don't have it in me, so can you please text me through this? And I'm like, you got this, girl, like go for it, and I send my whole spiel. But I was like, that's something I could definitely capitalize on, and that's something that could so be applied to self-help. So kind of transitioned into really exploring coaching. And I idolize Jay Shetty. I think he's amazing. And
Yes.
he's incredible. And what he does is more of overarching life coaching. So I started looking into the various branches, because there's, you can call yourself a life coach, but I think nowadays there's so many different life coaches that people are sort of narrowing down. So I started exploring, law of attraction coaches, mindset coaches. There's literally coaches out there who help, like there's such specific niches. Like there's coaches for people who have like fear of flying or a fear of clowns, which is very interesting. And, they make a living off of that, which is awesome. So I was like, where is sort of my niche in this? Where do I feel the most called to go? And I think for me, it was just building my brand around mindset development, motivation, manifestation. And ever since that realization, I've basically been calling myself a mindset coach, and I kind of been coaching people for free, and getting my first round of paying clients. Literally my first session is tomorrow. So it's been fun. And basically what I'm hoping to do with that is a lot of what I've been building my brand around, like just empowering people to go live after their purpose, to go follow their dreams. And it doesn't have to be anything career wise. It can be, if your dream is, to have a house by the time you're 28, how can I help you with that? Like what decisions would you need to kind of make now? What would it look like for you if you didn't have that versus, if you did? And sort of how to, on an internal level, really shift your mindset, shift your thoughts, your daily routine to allow that material reward to flood in. So definitely use lots of law of attraction in my approach. If People are open to that. So it's just been cool, even in my free sessions recently, to be able to see how that's played out for people and how those conversations have helped them. And I think I've been learning a lot about myself as a coach as well, with just like realizing I can't solve everyone's problems, and that's not what a
Right.
coach does, And I think I came into it with this approach of like, I need to have all the answers, and I almost like saw myself as a teacher, and I was like, I need to really walk people through like steps X, Y, and Z. But now I've realized that I don't have to do any of that. What I have to do is step back, ask the right questions, probe, people I'm working with in a way that gets them to maybe be a little bit uncomfortable or step into this frame of thinking where they've never walked into before. Because oftentimes we don't have conversations with ourselves as humans. Like, we don't do that, right? Like, we're surrounded by noise, we're surrounded by routine with the rat race. We never just sit down with ourselves and go like, so what am I really scared of in life? Like that. So, and it seems like such a simple question, but no one asks us that. We don't ask ourselves that. So I realize it's my job as a coach to get people into a frame of thinking that might not feel the most natural, but will allow them to get the most out of it and to get the most results. So it's just been cool, like with me reinventing sort of my techniques and learning more by the day, listening to podcasts, seeing what other coaches are doing, having a network community of other life coaches who are in their 20s and being like, wow, like people do this, like people my age are doing this, and kind of share with them, practice with them. It's definitely been super cool, and I would just love to see it grow from here.
Absolutely. And, I would love the same. Rani is a huge supporter of building community and, sort of building whatever it is that you want to be part of. And so we definitely hope to see that grow. We're very sure that we will. I think it was so interesting when you were saying, talking about empowering people to sort of have those discussions, right, with themselves. And I think I learned the value of that during my college career. And, I had very weird moments, I think, where I would sit in front of the mirror to the point where I would look at myself for an actual long period of time without trying to achieve something. Like, I'm not doing my makeup, I'm not getting ready for the day. I'm just looking, and like, in my mind I was having that conversation, and it's so weird because I felt so uncomfortable and unnatural, because that's not something that, we're taught to do, or it's not normalized, and all of that sort of thing. And, I think my mission as well for starting this podcast was to empower people to, learn from others and learn from stories. And I think a lot of the time we grow up in a community that's so based on achievement, and we're almost pitted against each other sometimes. And, oh, that person's able to do this, why aren't you on that level, kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
have learned so much that gives rise to a lot of almost jealousy and discomfort when you see others succeed. And, coming into this space, hearing people like you, hearing people like Janani, and all the other great people that I've been able to interact with, it's coming to that cognition that, it's okay, because there's room for everybody. And I think it's empowering to me now to hear the stories of others, and
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to take something away from that, because I think inspiration can be found at any time and anything, in any sort of way. And I don't think it has to be conventional. And I think it can be anything that resonates with you as a person. So yeah, what a fantastic story. What a phenomenal story. Thank you for sharing, and
Of
being so
course.
open to discussing this, and even, spreading all these positive, these mindset changes, and building, like you said, building your brain around something, with your business and in your personal life, and, giving me the time of day to chat. So if there's one thing that you want our listeners to take away from your story today, what would that be?
Yeah, I think kind of immediately when you said that, I feel like a big takeaway just for everyone tuning in today is, honestly, it sounds so cliche, but I hope that my story kind of helped you guys really, give that like sort of backbone to the fact that this cliche does hold weight, but it is believe in yourself, like truly, on a full emotional, energetic level, like believe in the, talents and gifts that you were born and put on this planet with. Like, you have them for a reason. And connecting back to the point that you just made, Benita, about the how comparison is very natural and it's something that happens, but when you realize that there is room for everyone, how differently you start viewing yourself and other people around you, and how you just feel so much more motivated to keep going after, you know, your own goals while also supporting other people. I think that's huge, because I was just made a post about this earlier today, but like imposter syndrome is something that comes up a lot for, you know, myself, and I know a lot of other creators who I've sort of interacted with in this space as well, and I know you kind of expressed similar feelings to me. But when you realize that everyone was put in this experience on, you know, kind of like a overarching like collective consciousness level, we were all put on this planet with various energetic signatures. Like we all have our own unique, like almost like little gifts in a way. And pretty much our end goal with that is to use the unique like array of talents and skills we came with to better humanity. And if you think about it from the spiritual lens of, we are here as a collective consciousness to help one another on a soul level, there is no room for competition. Like that doesn't exist. It automatically ceases to exist when you understand that we are here to help one another. But we as a society create this concept of competition because we start thinking with our egos instead of our souls. So I think it's really important to also just emphasize to people out there, like, more than just, you know, believing in yourself, also understand that we are all here for, yes, everyone has their own life purpose, but I think one purpose that unifies all of us is the fact that we're here for the betterment of humanity and to spread love. And I truly believe that on a soul level. And I know there's people probably listening who are like, oh yeah, that's definitely not my purpose. Like, I don't resonate with that. And that's fine if you don't believe that, right? Like, I feel like that's something that we're all here to do. So there is no room for jealousy. And I'm not saying that to invalidate people's feelings, because that will come up for you. That has come up for me too. But when you recognize that, like, on a soul level, there's something much greater than our daily routine and our accomplishments and what we put on a resume, you start to see your mission so differently, you know, and you start to refer to what you do as more of, like I said, a mission and a message, as opposed to a title or a role. So I think that's incredible. So yeah, I mean, everyone listening, go ahead and just start that like blog, start that book, start that podcast, whatever that may be. And I know it'll take an ounce of having to step out of your boundaries and your comfort zone for a little bit, but you're going to be okay. Like, the universe will reciprocate it if you just have faith. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. And, you know, day by day, as I'm going through my own journey, I can see that happening, you know, putting yourself in that sort of space of discomfort, and the universe really does meet you halfway. You know, great things will come. And I think patience and kind of having that faith in something that's beyond you and everybody else is really important. And, you know, the other thing you said about how comparison nearly doesn't exist if we, you know, approach life on that deeper level of like the reason of all of our connection, right? And looking at it between souls instead of minds or egos and people. I think that's so important. And so with that, listeners, viewers, whoever you are, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you guys were able to take some really great things away. Definitely go check out all of the social media platforms that we will have listed down below. And as we all know, I love doing the little pointers. Nistha's emails and all of her social media platforms will be available for you guys. Definitely go check her out. You know, talk to her, engage with me. Obviously, I love engaging with all of you. It's been a really great time to have you, Nistha. Thank you so much for spending your time today. And friends, as usual, stay rowdy, rise up and uplift others, and have a great day. And please, please, please stay safe. Until next time.